Hey everyone, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ted, and today I'm joined by...
Nerdarchy Dave.
And what do you mean your wizard didn't take Fireball?
What is he, some kind of pacifist?
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter. Get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us.
So oddly enough, Ted comes to me and goes, hey, I want to do a character build that is based on, wizards or sorcerers or spellcasters that don't do damage per se with their spells. Well, recently we've had someone, ask me just that question. How would you build a pacifist in 5e with a spellcaster? What would you go about it? They're like, so the weird thing though with the pacifist in this kind of scenario is if you're constantly like in danger and putting yourself where you're going to have to like harm others, it's really hard to be a pacifist because like even if you don't directly harm people,
Other people are.
other people are. So you're talking about some real major mental gymnastics to say I don't hurt people.
So my idea on this one wasn't, oh, let's make something that isn't dealing, isn't going to harm. I was looking at it as, okay, well, how fun and interesting would it be to make a character that just doesn't, deal with the damage spells. They're out there for battlefield control. To me, it's more like a tactician, really playing up that intelligence. You could take this character and say, well, I'm going to use my spell slots for problem solving and use them in interesting ways. And if you don't have a problem dealing the damage, you can have the fallback of, well, I'll use my damage dealing cantrips as my attack formations. But you would use battlefield control, you'd put up walls, you'd put up these interesting things, you'd create barriers, but you're not doing area effect damage, you're not doing direct damage. You could do a lot of fun and interesting things with this, and and still fall into that, I'm not dealing damage. You could do it as a tactician, you could do it as a pacifist, or you could just use these things to say, all right, I want to make something that's fun and interesting.
I mean, I definitely have seen villains, right, in pop culture type stuff where they're like, "Oh, I'm squeamish. I abhor violence, like me doing it directly or having it done to me. Not really opposed to it. I just don't want to see it. And that's for someone else to do,
Right.
kind of thing." So you were looking at several wizard traditions as the ones that you're calling out as probably being the better ones for this.
All right, so if you go with enchantment, I looked at the early level powers to really give a build point. So if you go with an enchanter, you have minor charm person effect. If you go with illusion, you have the improved minor illusion cantrip effect, so you wind up getting more out of it. And if you go with transmuter, you can change one thing into another. So like there's some definite play value there. I think some of the other ones just seem a little bit too far out of reach, either with the spell selection that you're going to be taking, or just like they're just far too damaging.
Like the invoker, like is going to be pointless for this type of build.
Exactly.
I would also say that most of the sorcerer origins would actually work as well, because a lot of the spells would benefit from either increasing the range, twinning. What doesn't, and what isn't better when you quicking it. So there's a lot, so you get a lot of bang for your buck with the sorcerer as well, especially when they're targeted spells that normally you can only concentrate on one at a time, like haste or enlarge or something like that. You can then twin it and you get actually to cast it, hold two concentrations at the same time. So it's kind of a big deal.
Absolutely. So, you could, if you really wanted to, you could kind of multi-class this angle just to get some of those effects going. So if we get into first level spells, you've got Charm Person, kind of a no-brainer. Get somebody on your side, either in or out of combat. Fog Cloud, Grease. These things are totally battlefield control. You can cause things not to be able to see you, or cause difficult terrain. Protection from good and evil. that's going to give disadvantage, on the enemies attacking you.
It does more than that too. It's really good for keeping your, so that your allies or yourself doesn't get possessed. So that that's a good one. I've even used it at higher levels. It comes in useful, especially if one of the players fails a saving throw versus a charm effect, and you can cast that on them, and then they'll get another shot at that saving throw with advantage. So it's pretty useful.
Tasha's Hideous Laughter, or Hideous Laughter, depending upon which version you want to use. Maybe you don't have Tasha in your world. This causes someone to just, fall to the ground laughing. Oh, they failed their save. They're now prone laughing. That's going to cause anyone that's attacking them to have advantage. That's really great. So they lose their turn, and your allies get advantage. That's a really good effect for a first level spell.
Blindness, deafness. Again, that's a nice one to twin because generally you can only affect one person at a time. Crown of Madness is another charm effect where you can turn your enemies to your allies. Very useful. Darkness is another control effect. We have Reduce and Enlarge. Again, a good one to twin, because if you have your allies and you want them to do more damage, it gives them an extra dice. It's going to increase their reach a little bit.
This is one
makes
spell.
them stronger.
This is one spell that actually has a double purpose. You can use it on your ally to make them better, or you can use it on an enemy to make them weaker. So that spell I think is really a potent choice for this particular build because it has that dual purpose.
Yeah, so all in all, there is a lot of spells that you can employ that are going to assist your allies or detract from your enemies. A fun one is Slow. It doesn't get as much use as Haste, but it's quite useful, reducing what your enemies can actually do and, affecting an area. So you also looked at some of the different feats that are going to be useful as well.
So I looked at Magic Initiate. If you're looking to go far, with the the more pacifist angle, if you go with Cleric, you're going to wind up getting Cure Wounds or Bless. This is something that's going to allow you to aid your party really well as you're going to be able to choose a few cantrips. And if you take things like Thaumaturgy and Spare the Dying, you're going to be far more useful in that role. So that one feat is going to expand you in that direction as well.
Well, also if you're going with the idea that your character is more of a tactician, and that's why he specializes in control effects and prefers them over damaging, and so this way he can kind of either aid the allies or hinder the enemies, and then he just figures his allies will do clean up the battlefield for him. Or her. And so, another good one is Spell Sniper, because if they're using their main spells for controls and cantrips for damaging, it gives you another cantrip. It makes you, increases your range with your attacks, which is better as well. And also you can ignore cover and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. One of the things that I like for a sorcerer is I like the idea of, casting Witch Bolt at a high level and hitting someone for a bunch of D12s and then concentrating and doing a D12 every round on them. But as a sorcerer, you then use Quicken Spell to then, every round also still be casting spells.
Right.
So you can, you're zapping.
I got my Sith Lightning over here. Meanwhile,
yeah, so, you can do interesting combinations like that. That's why I say, sorcerer, a lot of the different origins are going to work really well. If you want to just do different control effects, focus on different spells that are non-damaging, and you'll be able to aid your allies as well. Druid, you could probably find some wiggle room in there as well to do the same.
So these are really useful concepts if you're tromping around the dungeon. Spell Sniper might not be as much in the dungeon, but with dungeons, if you want to head over to Nerdarchy the store, you can get some awesome dungeon tiles to really booster your game, bolster your gaming table, and
build your own dungeons.
And really have a nice presentation effect for your gaming table.
Now, I will say though, Spell Sniper, while it may not be as useful in the dungeon because of the range and line of sight, it is useful for when enemies are peeking around the corner. You don't have to worry about them getting cover.
That is true. So there's always going to be these layered effects with this. The question is, are you going to build this kind of kind of character out to be the tactician and bolster your spell repertoire, or do you want to play this as a completely non-damaging, pacifist tactician and really have a lot of fun with it? And when you're like, oh yeah, I'm a wizard, I didn't take fireball, or I don't have lightning bolt, and really, have those, WTF moments.
Well, what about too? Like, what if you wanted to come from the angle of more like the witch, or you're someone that like you reflavor your spellcasting to where you're cursing other people all the time. Warlock would work well for this as well. It's for they don't have enough spells to be really good at it. But the flavor of the idea is, you're just constantly hexing, not as in a spell, but it is in thematically. You describe things different, like your hold persons, and your slow, and really you've really just have focused on your character that just debuffs. It would just be an interesting way to do it, and then you can come up with the character that would do that. Like, I would envision this as being like a creepier kind of build where you're focusing on that. Maybe your character's a hermit and they have weird taboos or things that they do. So not only can you think of cool ways to do this from a mechanical standpoint, then you can start matching up the role playing to the mechanics. Like, why is it that this spellcaster really only focuses on buffs or debuffs or area control spells? What is it? What is it in their life that drove them to that particular area of study?
So depending upon how you want to go with it, there's a lot of different angles, and that's just 3 of them. What other angles can you come up with? Have you played this kind of character before? Are you playing it now? There's a great place to continue that conversation. That's down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Check us out over on Facebook.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.